David Tulis.
The county commission 8-1 last night voted to raise taxes on homeowners in the county. Thousands and thousands of people who pay taxes on the privilege of owning land within the corporation of Hamilton, the Hamilton County Corporation, and they are going to be giving the government, if we believe reports in the TV press, which are sometimes not to be quite relied on, giving a cash influx of $30 million, upon which, if I understand things correctly, there will be guarantees for borrowing. So borrowing will be based on, I guess, on the fractional reserve system. And if you have some millions from new tax inflows, that can be made available for loans or guaranteeing loans. This is David Tulis, and we're glad that you're giving us just a couple of minutes of your time here at Nooga Radio. And we are hoping to be richer for it, right? If we raise taxes on ourselves, we will all be richer. If we borrow more, have more debt, we are richer too. So the old school has it backwards, that liquidity is king, and that having no debts is better. In our day, though, having debts, having an experience as a debtor, having a record, right? Having a record as a debtor makes you a man of account. And in fact, that is where that phrase comes from. A man of account. I'm thinking in the history that I read about the history of debt. Maybe in England in the 19th century, a man of account was a man who paid his bills at the end of the month, because all of his expenses, his laundry, his grocery, his heat, his cold bill, all paid for on credit, and he paid at the end of the month. So a man of account is one who has a record of being a debtor. So these are the kinds of people we are all to become, right? We're all to be debtors, and that is a sign of character. That is a sign that you can pay back what you have borrowed. Now we are. I do want to have you hear just a second here, a chat that is that I had yesterday with the only no vote. Now, he's a man who's not free to chat with you right now. He's on the job, a working man named Tim Boyd. And here's what he says about what happened yesterday.
Well, what happened today is the county commission voted 8-1 in favor of the mayor's proposed tax increase, with a 3-business day notice over a holiday weekend to catch everybody off guard and pressure the commissioners into voting for his tax increase. I don't understand it. As a businessman in the world I work in, 3 days notice to reach out and grab over $30 million more from the citizens of Hamilton County is unconscionable. I can't even begin to understand why 8 commissioners, 6 of whom are so-called conservative Republicans, voting for such a thing. I don't get it. I don't understand it. You don't come to me and request money with no plan, no details, no time to discuss, and expect me to support anything you got.
Was there a debate in the morning meeting at 8:30 to
very little? David, I stated my points of why I was not supportive of this tax increase resolution, and a lot of it was about physical irresponsibility on the mayor's part. He's got the reason I didn't vote for his budget back in June, which was voted on 8-1, is there's millions of dollars of wasteful, inefficient, unnecessary, non-essential programs that Coppinger has in the budget, which I pointed out in a written document in March and handed to everybody, that I think these programs ought to be significantly reduced and or eliminated. And Coppinger's chief of staff said there's no way we're going to even consider any of that.
This is David Tulis, and we're hearing from Tim Boyd, who was the only no vote, the only naysayer on the county commission. Those who voted for a tax increase yesterday, Wednesday, are Greg Martin, Sabrina Smedley, Chester Bankston, Warren Mackey, Randy Fairbanks, Jim Fields, Joe Graham, and Greg Beck. Now, we could say that they are all very courageous elected officials, because they, if we hear Tim Boyd, you might say the taxpayer watchdog on the commission, they voted for increasing taxes without there being a real plan and no motive. In a way, the idea of a cash windfall may have gotten to their heads, and you can see some of that in the report on TV9's website. TV9 says the money will be used for capital projects and will require the board's approval, but chairman of the board, Dr. Steve Highlander, says he doesn't know how or where the money will be spent and isn't aware of any specific plans. And it's just, if that statement is accurate, I just have to laugh. And so do you, my listener, here on the David Tulis Show, here at Nooga Radio, 1240 AM and 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4 FM, the signal that pierces out 50 miles. A parent is quoted, Lindsay Coleman, who went to this a PTA meeting also yesterday, and she says the extra money will prove beneficial. I think all of my children, and my children especially, will benefit from this money. Lindsay Coleman says. Here's more of Tim Boyd.
So until Coppinger and his administration consider cutting the waste out of the county budget, this commissioner, this physically conservative Republican right-wing commissioner, is not going to support wasteful spending of my citizens, my constituents' tax dollars. I'm not going to do it, David. It just, I don't even know. I'm so passionate.
What is the argument? What arguments did you hear? I was on the air when you all met, so I'm going to have to just rely on reports and maybe watch it on TV. What were the arguments made by your colleagues for the increase? And how much was the increase for in 1 year's taxation? Was it $100 million to be raised in 1 year, or is that collections over a series?
No, let me back up. It's about a $33.5 million property tax increase over the whole county. That's the additional revenue that will come in with this tax increase. So that's about, 13% increase in tax revenue coming into the counny.
Is that $33 million a year? Because the county budget is about $400 million, right? So it's
Well, no, wait a minute. The county budget, the total budget's about $680 million, with $425 million of that going to the schools.
Right. Okay.
So the county government budget is about $265, $270, something like that. So we're going to increase the county budget by $33.5 million, which will push it up around $300 million. That's the money, and that's every year. Oh yeah, that's every year. Now, what Coppinger's planning to do with that, and I totally get this part of it. He's saying that he's going to use that $33.5 million to go out and sell $200-300 million worth of bonds, and use that additional revenue to service the bonds over 15 years. The part that really bugs me, David, is the fact there's no details. It's a vision. It's a visionary plan, and I'm glad that after 7 years, Coppinger finally came out with a visionary plan. I got to give him that much credit. But what I'm opposed to is no time, no discussion, no details. You know, I'm not Pelosi. I'm not going to vote on something and then find out what it is. I'm not going to do that. And that's what the commissioners did today. Now, their argument against me was that we needed this for economic development and building schools and repairing schools, et cetera, et cetera. Well, David, all of that argument has been on the table way before 3 days ago. So why didn't we start discussing this tax increase back in the spring and have it a part of his quote-unquote balanced no tax increase budget that was passed? I made the motion to delay voting on his balanced budget, no tax increase budget. I made a motion to delay it for 60 to 90 days so we could review all this kind of stuff. Well, here we are 60, 75 days down the road, and here we are with a tax increase with no public discussion. That's wrong. I won't be a part of it.
Well, how does that? You're in the legislative branch. Do you all vote? Does your body vote for the tax increase, and he signs it? Is that? I mean, does the executive have to sign it? I mean, it's his proposal, I understand, but in the end, it's his signatures. Is that right, Tim?
Well, the resolution says that the commission has determined that this tax increase is necessary. Don't have the mayor's name on it anywhere.
Okay.
It's all about the commissioners.
He's proposing it. And
Now, by state law, since he's the executive of the county, he has to sign every resolution. Yes, he's signing for us. In this case, he is signing that resolution for the commission to be law, if you will.
Right, I understand.
But his name is not on the resolution. It's all about the commissioners. This is the commissioner's tax increase, not the mayor's tax increase. In fact, I even read that part of the resolution in the record last week. I mean, their argument is we need to do all this, and I don't disagree. We don't need to do all of it, but the first thing we need to do is get rid of all the waste in our budget first, and then talk about a tax increase.
Let me just suggest one thing. In my piece today at Nooganomics.com, I point out that we've had at least 2% of inflation per year. If we haven't had, and I'm not remembering the figure, but $100 was $100. What you had to have $100 to buy. Well, $100 went so far in the economy 7 years ago when the last increase apparently took place. And now you have to buy the same things, you have to spend about $124 or so for the same things in the way of lost buying power. So the commission is losing buying power in the marketplace, Tim. But that problem of inflation, the slow inflation every year, that doesn't seem to be entering into the discussion at all. But you really are, as a governing body, able to buy less and less every year, at least 2%. The Fed's target for inflation is 2% per year. And so you're effectively losing.
Yeah, but we've grown the budget by greater than the consumer price index every year.
Okay. So you're gaining
our
power.
Buying power.
Okay.
Well, we should be gaining a little power. Plus, we're not spending all the money we're taking in, so our revenue, our fund balance is increasing every year, and the government.
This is Tim Boyd talking.
Having a tax decrease. Government's not in the business of making money. I know we got to have a fund balance, but we sure don't need to be wasting money on ineffective programs and are growing a fund balance and are increasing the budget by greater than consumer price index every year. And we are. And we continue to do so.
Well,
so we haven't lost any buying power, but we haven't gained any buying power either. Right. I mean, we have, when I say our increases have been more than the consumer price index. If some of the years were 1.5%, our increase may have been 2%, or it may have been 1.75%. It's never been equal to or less than the consumer price index. It's always been greater.
Well, what my listener wants to know, Tim, is the fact of this commission. I know you're the no vote. You're like Ron Paul, always saying no on these military outlays, these foreign wars, and and new taxes. Your Dr. No, as it were, on the county commission here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County. What the commission is saying, though, by raising taxes for schools, is that we're not going to let the public, the member of the public, the listener of my radio station, have that money for his own educational expenses. We're enlarging the capital expenditure for education and schooling in this county. We're taking it from you and we're investing it in our system, and we're not letting you have that. So the market for the capital in education, in the educational sector, is consumed by the county and the city, well, the county and the state. And the listener is deprived of his discretionary dollars in education because of the county government. And here is voting for a tax increase, and I think it's like a slap in the face of the member of the public to deny him his educational dollar to be spent as he sees fit. He can't spend it now. It's taken by the county.
Well, I'm not saying, David, I'm not for making capital improvements for our educational system. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, until we take the wasteful spending out of the budget, I'm not going to be for any tax increase. Last March, I outlined $4.5 million of cuts, just $4.5 million. That ain't even 5%. $4.5 million of cuts to the budget, which, if we use that as debt service on bonds, would service $50 million of capital projects with no tax increase. Now, that's $50 million that we desperately need to put into our school infrastructure, buildings and maintenance. But Coppinger refuses to make those cuts. He just wants to do a tax increase. Well, I'm not going to do that. Instead of the $33.5 million
This is David Tulis. We are trying to hear an interview with Tim Boyd, and I've lost my place here. Hang on.
I know that we're going to have
I'm sorry. He's saying, Tim Boyd is making a point about public expenditure for schools, and he's not unsympathetic to public education per se. Okay, he is a conservative, and as many conservatives, he accepts the intervention of the state in the educational marketplace, and so he is I would say he's the leading defender of taxpayers on the county commission and represents their interests better than any of the other members of that body, some of whom are self-styled conservatives, some of whom are Republicans. And and yet he has in view the acceptance of the public education enterprise and is willing to make capital investments. And the part of the interview that I'm not able to play right now, he says the following, that he is for public schools, but he simply wants there to be the cuts that he's proposed in wasteful spending. So he is his good point is that he believes in fine-tuning the outlays of tax dollars and avoiding waste and excesses and needless programs. But you have to say, yes, we're all for that. And all Republicans, all conservatives, at least make token mention of the need to cut waste. But that, in the larger sense, in the sense of ideas, that doesn't work. There has to be a principled stand for the marketplace and against cartel economics. And Tim Boyd is the closest to that position of all the members on the county commission. The other members, even though they're so-called conservatives, just typify of what we here at the David Tulis program are not in favor of, right? Which we are against. We are for the free market, for you, the listener, and for every member of the public like you, being able to make those decisions yourself on how you want to spend your educational dollars, right? If you don't have children, you don't have to spend educational dollars. But if you do, capital should be freed for you to spend that as you see fit in the free market, as they say, in the private sector. So that would be a Christian school, a secular school such as Baylor or Macaulay or home education. The problem that we have is that we don't have capital. That market has been starved for capital for decades by the public school cartel. The the intervention in the marketplace, right? There's an intervention because things don't work. People on their own, residents of Chattanooga, Hamilton County, can't make those decisions. We have to be there to make these decisions for them in the public interest, right? That's in the Constitution. That's what's stated is a public benefit to have free public schools. And so we have those in our law in Tennessee. Tim Boyd is the best we have today. Now the question is, in the next generation of Hamilton County Commission members, will we have someone who is in principle for the marketplace and not just concerned about cuts? He would be willing to raise taxes, he says. He would be willing to raise taxes if these inefficiencies could be cut. And he points out that his proposal would have cut $4.5 million in cuts. And from that amount could have been used to serve $50 million in new debt. So there's a conservative for you. David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news.